Welcome to the Lighthouse Project, and tonight's sponsors, Natalie Kaiser, in honor of Annie Rachel Hazan Bat Simha Gamra, and Mordechai Ben Simon Ben Yamina, co-sponsored anonymously for the Refuah Shlema of Chaim Yosef Arya Ben Miriam, and for the Refuah Shlema of Menachem Mendel Ben Sarabatya and Deborah Fega Bat Rezel. Tonight's learning is dedicated in memory of Shua Polansky of blessed memory. May his neshama have an aliyah, and for long life, Yibod L'chaim Tibaruchim, for the Refuah Shlema of Menachem Mendel Ben Sarabatya and Deborah Fega Bat Rezel. Okay, as always, I ask of you, please take a moment and go ahead and share and like so that other people can see, your friends can see, and then join the Torah teaching. Before we start the class tonight, I'd like to ask you all to join. I sent out today a 60-second Thanksgiving challenge. And basically it is within 60 seconds to be able to list 3 things in your life that you're thankful for. So literally within 60 seconds, don't let it get too complicated. It's just very simple. Quick 3 things. I posted my own. You can go to my Facebook page, The Jewish Mind and Avrohom Lipszyc, and you'll see over there. So please just go ahead and post it so we can get a moment of gratitude for Hashem. Okay, so modern issues to be dealt with today. So the topic that we're going to be talking about today is going to lead us to a simple modern day issue, which is the addiction of feelings. So let's talk about this. Regardless of how many times we are taught, Moach shalat al halev, the mind rules over the heart. I mean, just scientifically, that's the way it works. Nevertheless, the true experience of the human life is in the realm of emotions. We have intellects, we have emotions, we have garments, as in thought, speech, and action, but the truest form of human life is in emotions. Feelings is what drives every action and of every not taking an action. Love, fear, that's the primary ones. Compassion, a kind of mixture of both. But those are the primary emotions which drive, and their offshoots, which drive us, everything we do and everything that we refrain from doing. As a matter of fact, in Tanya it says that the driving force for all 248 commandments is love, and the driving force for all 365 prohibitions is fear. So as much as we talk about mind rules over the heart, nevertheless, the primary experience of human life is the feelings. Now, the true and only healthy definition of this rule, the mind rules over the heart, we're being told that we should live that type of life. The only true and healthy definition of that is not that our power of intellect should delete our experience of feelings. We don't want to do that. A human being without a feelings is not a human being. You know, that's what we have computers for. Computers is without feelings and just shoots out intellectual answers, factual answers. So that's not what we're looking for in life. Life is about feelings. To delete feelings is to delete the primary experience of human life. So what does it mean when it tells us, you should know that the human way of life, what differentiates between a human and an animal, is that a human must always have moach shalat al halev. The mind has to rule over the heart. So the only true and healthy directive here is 2 things. Number 1, that our mind should be in control of making sure that our feelings only go to the right areas. Fear could be debilitating and paralyzing, or fear can be very productive and constructive, depending where we allow our fear to manifest itself. Love, the same way. Love can be either, paralyzing and destroy our lives, or love can be the greatest drive. I once shared with you that Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich, writes that in all 10 years of his research of wealthy people and successful people, there was always a love relationship involved. So that could be the most driving force. So the first thing is to make sure, the mind's job is to make sure that our heart's emotions manifest themselves in the right areas and don't manifest themselves in the wrong areas. The second thing that the mind over matter, mind over heart is supposed to do is not just control where we love and fear and where we don't, but also the intensity level. When the intensity level of love and fear and compassion either goes too high, it's not sustainable and is debilitating, and if it goes too low, it's not healthy. So the two jobs is A, where are you going to love? Where are you going to fear? Where are you going to have compassion? And on the same note, the second job is that when you are already in the right arena of emotions, your emotions are manifesting themselves in the right areas, then we need to monitor the intensity level. Okay? So that's what it really is supposed to mean. However, I want to share with you now, and this is based on scientific studies. Specifically, I have links in the notes that you can open up to actually get scientific articles on what I'm about to tell you. Primarily, my experience with this is more than ever is from Dr. Joe Dispenza in his 3 books. So I just want to share with you, mind rules over heart is not just a moral directive. It's actually a scientific fact. Today we know that every thought, there's the mind and there's the brain. The brain is the physical, the mind is, let's call it the software. The software versus the hardware. Now the mind has thoughts. We today know that every thought creates a physical reaction in your brain. One of it creates different neural patterns. Now, one of the physical reactions that every single one of your thoughts create is it creates a chemical called peptides. There's neuropeptides. Neuropeptides is what creates feelings. Now, we also know that in the brain, we do not know the difference between a virtual or a real thought. For example, if I am right now watching a movie, a horror movie, a thriller movie, I know that this is all one big fake fantasy. It's virtual reality. And yet, my thoughts on the matter is going to create physiological reactions just as if I was truly in danger. Because the brain's reaction to the mind's thoughts, it makes no difference whether it's driven by virtual or by factual. Okay? So a thought, literally a thought, creates a physical reaction, and one of those physical reactions are the hormones that create feelings, and thus we now see, truly so, that the mind rules over the heart. It's just that simple. Okay? You can have a real fear, a real danger that you're not thinking about, and you won't experience fear. You can have a virtual danger that you are thinking about, and you will not fear. Because the brain really rules over the heart. Not the external facts, but the internal hardware, which is driven by the software. So the thoughts creates a reaction in the brain, which will create a feeling. Now, the problem is that in your brain, there is in the limbic system something called the amygdala. Now, to just keep it simple, you can look it all up. I put links in the notes so you'll have it. But in the amygdala, one of the jobs the amygdala does is it basically monitors the chemicals in the blood. And its job is to protect the homeostasis of your blood levels. Let's go further with this. On top of that, your body, your cells have memory. More importantly, every one of your body cells has emotional memory. So much so that it transforms itself to the memory of the emotions. For example, a person that has been living in prolonged stress, his body cells will have developed new receptors for these chemicals, these peptides. Now what happens is that when you live under such a prolonged state of stress or fear or whatever it may be, you've created now a new homeostasis in your blood system. And when you stop worrying or when you stop having stress, your cells are going to react with discomfort because they're not receiving their norm, what has become their norm. The amygdala in the brain will pick up that there has been a change in the amount of stress or anxiety peptides, chemical hormones in your blood system. And what is it going to do? It's going to try to regulate it back to norm. How does the amygdala bring back up the peptide levels in your blood system? The answer is it drives you to have thoughts. The type of thoughts that will once again cause the brain to produce it. Thus, you will notice that people that live in long-term anxieties, they wake up in the morning with doom thoughts. And they do that because their body's memory, the amygdala's definition of the present homeostasis of the chemicals that are supposed to be flowing in your blood system is high anxiety. Thus, you're driven to have thoughts that will cause anxiety, sending the brain a message, start producing high anxiety amounts of peptides. What I'm trying to share with you here is that in the human life, we can actually create the exact antithesis of the rule, the scientific natural rule that the mind controls the heart. Because if you're following what I'm saying, right now it's the heart, i.e. feelings, i.e. peptides in your body's emotional memory of each cell that's driving the brain to think in order to serve the heart. So, in the deepest level, the mind rules over the heart means that the heart is here to be able to take the abstract thoughts of higher intellect and make it real human experience by creating feelings. That's the way it's supposed to be. Feelings are supposed to be the manifestation in human experience of our higher intellects. Thus the brain rules the heart. What we've done most often is create the reverse. Our body's emotional memory of each one of our body cells is controlling the mind what to think, rather than the mind telling us where to manifest our emotions. Okay? So that's just a little bit of the modern day issue that we're going to talk about. And basically in this lecture, which is focused on a teaching of the Rebbe of blessed memory in 1988, where the Rebbe talks about this, actually 87 actually, before December. He's talking about the Torah portion. At the end, it talks about the final showdown between Jacob and his father-in-law Laban. So you know the story. Laban tricked Jacob over and over, made him work 7 years and gave him the wrong daughter. Then he made him work another 7 years to get the right daughter. Then made him work another 7 years in order to earn a living. And then he keeps on changing the form of payment. No, you'll get the striped ones, the dotted ones, the this and the that, and it's all in the Torah portion. Finally, Jacob decides, I've had enough. He talks to his wives, they agree, and they run away. And Lavan chases them. When Lavan reaches up to them, there's the final showdown. That's at the end of the Torah portion, literally the last piece. That's what this lecture is all built upon, and based upon that last showdown, we're going to learn the healthy process of feelings, of letting feelings simmer down so that life can begin. Okay? So now let's go into the introduction. That was the modern day issue that we're going to deal with. Now let's talk about the introduction. In the introduction, we have a very interesting teaching in one of the Kabbalistic books that says as follows. The Torah speaks of supernal, be'elyonim, which means celestial spiritual beings, and it hints of lower terrestrial physical beings. Now, what is this teaching saying to us? So just that you should know, when you learn Chassidus, you get very confused. It seems that the bad guys are the ultimate good guys, and the good guys are the mediocre guys. For example, Pharaoh in Kabbalah, we play with the word paro to mean ispariun, and all of a sudden Paro, the worst person, turns into the ultimate highest sublime spiritual person, who is what? From him comes forth all light. Mine ispariun, comes forth all light. Haman is supposed to be from the worst characters, and by the time you finish with Kabbalah, you realize that Haman is the one who built the 50 gallows, the gallows that was 50 cubits high, because 50 is the ultimate number of the levels of understanding. 49 is human, and the 50th is the ultimate crown, and thus he's connecting to that. And this goes on and on. For us, you should know that Lavan, the dishonest crook, is the greatest supernal level. To understand this, you need to know that the word Lavan really means white. Right? Now, Lavan, white, in Kabbalah there's two types of whites. One type of white is the white that we know, my shirt. That white is the emanation of wisdom, the first of the 10 emanations. However, in Hebrew, the word Lavan in Kabbalah doesn't just refer to the color white, it also refers to the transparent color of the water. When we talk about that Lavan, we're talking about not the first emanation of wisdom, we're going up and beyond that, which is the supernal crown. So all of a sudden, Lavan is no small character. We refer to him, obviously the way he's in this world, he's no fine person. But Lavan in the spiritual, when the Kabbalah teaches us that the Torah speaks of the supernal, celestial, spiritual realms, we talk about Lavan as the supernal white, which is the highest level of the infinite light, the way it is in the supernal crown. Now that you know that, I want to read to you the closing verse. After they had their whole conversation, everything's all over, and they realize that they're going to each go their own way, I want to read to you a verse. And that's going to be the opening of the entire teaching. And Lavan arose early in the morning and kissed his sons and daughters and blessed them. And Lavan went and returned to his place, and Jacob went on his way. Okay? So, what do we see here? On a mystical level, we're talking about the highest revelation of the supernal white, which is the infinite light, kissing the godly soul. Let's talk about this. I told you who Lavan was, right? Supernal white. The highest level of the infinite light, the supernal crown. Who is Yaakov? So what is Yaakov? Yaakov is made up of two parts. The first letter, Yud, is the first letter of God's name. The rest of the letters form a word which is Akev, which means heel. We all remember the simple story. Why is Yaakov called Yaakov? Because he held on to the heel of Esav. Now, what does this mean Kabbalistically when you say the name Yaakov? What it means is Yud, the soul, the godly soul, descends into the heel of the universe. What is the heel of the universe? The physical realm. Thus, you have Yud Akev, which refers to the godly soul as it manifests itself. It descends into the physical body. So now we know that on a mystical level, what's going on here? Yaakov Lavan, the supernal crown, the supernal white, kisses Yaakov, the soul, as it manifests, it descends and closes and manifests itself within the physical body. Right? So that's number one. What's the next thing we know? We know that right after that, right? Lavan returns to his place. That's what the verse says. Where is the place of the supernal crown? Back up in the essence. What does it say after that Jacob does? It says after that it says, and Jacob went on his way. Now, we have verses, I'm not going to take you down the whole, right? But simply speaking, there are verses that tells us that when we talk about on his way, what's the way of a good Jew? Torah and mitzvot. Because Torah and mitzvot are the ways through which God connects and draws himself into this world, right? When we do a mitzvah, we bring divinity into this world. And it's also the way that the soul connects and unites with above. So Torah and mitzvot is the way. So now we have a very interesting mystical interpretation to this verse. Lavan wakes up early in the morning and kisses the sons and daughters. Then Lavan returns to his place and Jacob goes on his way. So now we know what that means is that the morning always starts with an amazing revelation of the supernal white kissing the sons and daughters. We'll soon talk about what that means. And what happens through that is that Jacob goes on his way. After that morning kiss from God, the Jew can now go and do his service. Torah and mitzvot obviously includes business and everything as long as you do it in a kosher fashion. Okay? Okay. Now, with all this explained, let's list the mystical concepts that need to be understood for the exploration of our lecture as we do in every lecture. So are we ready? This is what we're going to discuss tonight. What is the mystical concept of sons and daughters? What does it say? It says that Lavan, the supernal white, kisses the sons and daughters. Right? Number 2, why does the supernal white leave? After he kisses the sons and the daughters, whatever that means, he leaves, right? And Lavan goes back to his place. Where is the place of the supernal white? The supernal crown? It's not down here in the physical world. It's up there. That returning, the light returns back into the source. Okay? Why? Next thing, number 3. What is the difference between spiritual service and physical service? The Jew has to do both. That's what the Torah commands us. There's the spiritual service and the physical service. What is the difference between the two? Number 4, what is the human effect on spirituality? I'm not talking about the effect that spirituality has on us. I'm not talking about the job that the upper spiritual world does to us. I want to know, what do we do? What kind of changes, unprecedented changes, do we do in the spiritual realms? Then the last thing is the ultimate power of physical service. Those are the quick concepts we're going to talk about today, and from there we'll have a complete picture of what is the healthy balance and intensity of emotions. And thus let the amazement of Hasidus begin. Let's kick right into the first one. Sons and daughters. What is sons and daughters? So generally speaking, in Kabbalah, masculine and feminine, I'm not talking about men and women, masculine and feminine always refers to givers and receivers. The masculine realms, the masculine emanations, the masculine faces, they're always the influencers. They're the mashpia, they're the givers. And then you have the daughters, the females, the feminine mystique up there is always the recipient. Okay? So now, let's go ahead and understand. You should know that the entire Seder Hishtalshelut. Good words to remember. Seder, you know from Passover. Why is the Seder called the Seder? Because it's an order, right? What you do. Seder is the order. Hishtalshelut is the chain evolution. Seder Hishtalshelut encompasses the entire system from the infinite to the finite. Okay? That is all called Seder Hishtalshelut. So you should know, as a rule, the entire Seder Hishtalshelut is simply made up of sons and daughters. It's simply made up of givers, influencers, and receivers. Now this exists within each realm itself, and it exists in the interplay between different spiritual realms. Let me list for you how this works. Within each spiritual realm, when we talk about the face, what are we talking about? We know that we talk about the 10 emanations. Above the 10 emanations, there's the supernal crown. What is the difference? The 10 emanations is the linear, the finite linear. while the crown is the circular, the infinite circular. So in the first stage within a spiritual realm, the job is for the supernal crown to be the giver and the intellects, which is the first three of the 10 emanations, to be the receivers. That's the first thing that happens. The supernal crown gives to the intellects. So the intellects here are the receivers. The supernal crown gives, it nourishes the finite linear with a ray of the infinite circular. Okay? Now, what's the next step after that? The next step after that is within the intellects itself, there's a masculine and there's a feminine. Wisdom is considered masculine and understanding is considered feminine. You probably, I'm sitting here only with women, so you probably all know the famous teaching of our sages, Bina Yetera Nitna Le'isha. An extra measure of understanding was given to the woman. So understanding is feminine and wisdom is masculine. What that means is that wisdom, being so close to the supernal crown, embraces the infinite power of creativity out of the box, because it's receiving from out of the box. Its job is to give the orderly female, the feminine understanding, a ray of that infinite creativity. By the way, not going to get deep into this, but just think about it on the physical level. How is a child born? The male gives the female the DNA. I'm not talking about the two halves, I get that, but I'm just saying, simply speaking, what does the woman then do? In 9 months, she turns that little DNA into an entire structure. But she receives that power, the arousal power, from what the male gave. Thus too, in wisdom and understanding, there's an infinite dot of creativity, which wisdom has because it touches the supernal crown, it receives from the supernal crown, and thus it now becomes the giver to the managerial feminine understanding, which now has to develop it into the three-dimensional length, width, and depth, as it's explained in the world of intellect. What's the next stage? The intellects as a group becomes a giver, and the emotions become the receiver. Your emotions are supposed to be the offspring of your intellect. You feel what you feel because you know what you know. So in this relationship, both wisdom and understanding now become the givers, and the emotions, kindness, strictness, splendor, which in human terms, love, fear, compassion, they all are the recipients of intellect. Now let's talk about within the emotions itself. There's the masculine, there's the feminine. There are the 6 male aggressive emotions that drives us: love, fear, compassion, matter of principle, all those good stuff. And then there is the feminine. What is the feminine? Within the emotions itself, feminine is kingship, which primarily defines itself as the power of expression. Again, physically, men aren't that great at sharing their feelings. Expression isn't our stronghold. The feminine mystique has that power. So you have Malchut, the recipient, and the Zal, the small faces, is the giver. That's the way it works. I was very brief, but that's the way it works in the individual realm itself. Every spiritual realm works that way, on different dimensions, different levels, but basically it all breaks down to that. Supernal crown, the intellects, the emotions, and that's where you go. Now, what happens in the interplay between spiritual realms? It's very simple. The 10th emanation of the higher world, which is kingship, expression, its job is to express to the lower world. In that case, the supernal crown of the lower world becomes the recipient of kingship of the higher world. So everything from the first point of the infinite light until all the way down always is about sons and daughters, influencers, givers, and receivers. Now, what's important to understand is that in this process of evolution, the whole key here is that the giver does not give its essence. It gives an expression of self. If Supernal Crown was to truly give the essence of this circular, infinite, encompassing power into wisdom, wisdom would shatter. So the whole point is that the giver of the higher level is only a ray of expression into the receiver. And that's the way it keeps on working. So what really here goes on is that the power of this entire Seder Ishtalshalut is that we go from the highest level of the infinite light and we keep on processing and processing and processing this evolution, son, daughter, giver, receiver, until we get to a point where the light is weak enough that it can actually be a source of life and sustenance to the lowest level, which is the physical world. So now you understand, look at it in your soul. If the essence of your soul would shine into your intellect and your emotions, you would go haywire. So what we call it is array of array of array. Means, again, process, until it can actually fit it. That is the process of sons and daughters. Okay? Now that we understand that, I just want to share with you what a kiss means. A kiss in the world of Kabbalah and Hasidus is always built on the second verse in the Book of Songs. What does King Solomon say in the second verse of his Book of Songs? Yishakeni b'neshikas pihu, may you kiss me with the kiss of his mouth, for your love is better than wine. Simply speaking, the verse is interpreted, if you look into the first Rashi in the Book of Songs, he tells you, he quotes that our sages say that in the Book of Songs, all but one, every time it says the King Solomon, it actually is referring to God. The word Shlomo in the Book of Songs is actually one of God's names. And thus you understand that really what King Solomon is talking about is the love between the Jew and God. And thus the definition of Yishakeni b'neshikas piyu is the ultimate unity and oneness, far above and beyond a hug. So when we talk about that the supernal white kisses the sons and daughters, the morning begins with the highest level of the supernal white. A kiss, it unites and empowers all of the system of the givers and recipients every morning. Physically speaking, I actually saw a teaching. Physically speaking, it says in Chassidus, that is why the human being wakes up with the first thought is to be good. That's a reflection of the kiss of the supernal white. Okay? So now we know what the verse is saying. It's talking about the deepest kiss from something which is above and beyond the system. The ultimate revelation of the infinite light in the deepest unity with all the layers, all the sons and daughters. And why does this kiss happen? Why do you get a good morning kiss every morning from God? The verse tells us why. And Jacob went on his way. The reason why we need this kiss from above is because it's what empowers us to live as good Jewish boys and girls, men and women. You realize that when you wake up in the morning, you wake up as an egocentric being. Now, how is the egocentric being supposed to get out of bed? And the first thing to do is thank you, God. No, the first thing you want to do is take a shower, make sure you're all beautiful, and then you want to have a cup of coffee, and then you want to read the news, and then you want to look at your profile, and then it goes on and on and on. The world begins with me, and it actually ends with me. And everything in between is here to serve me. So therefore, God gives you a kiss. The supernal white gives you a supernal kiss. And now you're possible. It becomes possible. You're empowered. For Yaakov halach ladarkoi. And Jacob went on his way. And what's the way of Jacob? Again, Yud Akev, every Jew, the soul as it manifests itself, it clothes itself, and it gets into the finite physical courses of the body, is to live Torah mitzvot. Okay? So far, so good. Now, I wanted to share with you another concept. In Kabbalah, there's two types, it's explained in Chassidus beautifully over and over again. There's two types of relationships that goes on between God and us. Number one is an arousal that comes from above, unsolicited, unearned. For example, and Lavan woke up in the morning and kissed his sons and daughters. There's nothing you did in your sleep that earned that. So you start off with an arousal from above. And then the purpose of the arousal from above is to empower the physical Jew to now go ahead and create an arousal from below. What does an arousal from below mean? It's when I get out of bed and start serving God, thus I am initiating the relationship. Okay? So now we really have a beautiful understanding of what's going on here. You wake up in the morning, stuck in the egocentric self. Thus, the only way you can even start having a relationship with God is not by you reaching out, rather by the supernal kiss that comes from above, unsolicited. It empowers you, and now you're empowered to start the arousal from below. The Yaakov holach ladarka, Yaakov goes on his way and lives as a good Jewish boy and girl, just studies Torah and does mitzvahs. Now you are initiating a relationship with God. Okay? But the issue is, why does the supernal white then go on his way? I understand why Jacob goes on his way. Jacob goes on his way because he has to do his work. But why does the supernal white, after it kisses us, need to go back into the essence? Why can't it just patiently be on the side? Why can't it just be here? Why can't I have the supernal white close to me all day long? We need to understand why. Okay? And that is the second point, if you remember. The second point we're going to discuss today is why the supernal white leaves. To understand this, we need to understand God's desire. Why was the world created? So we can't say that it fulfills a need, because a God that has needs isn't a God. By definition, God can't have needs. What we do know is that God has a desire. What was the desire that God has, and why he has a desire, we don't know. Normally, you and I have a desire because we want what we don't have. But God has everything. So why was there a desire? We don't know. But God had a desire. What was the desire that God had? That specifically, this dark, cold, egocentric, separated place of the physical planet Earth should be his primary residence. This should be his abode. Now, what most people don't understand is that God's desire is not as much in as what should happen, in as much as how it should happen. Because if God wanted a physical abode, he makes it. So we have to find out what the real definition of his desire is. The desire of God is that the abode, the dwelling place here below should be built and brought about by the below. You understanding what's going on here? God doesn't want it should happen. He wants it specifically that we should do it. In other words, the entire egocentrism, that was the whole point of all these contractions. Why did God go through so many contractions of the infinite life? Son, daughter, daughter, son, son, daughter, daughter, son. What's going on here? Why did God do this? I shared with you that the only reason was to process an infinite amount of contractions and concealments to the infinite light until array of array of array of array is small enough and finite enough that it can give life to the physical being without having it shatter. Right? Now that we know that, why does God create this egocentric world? So I'm going to fill in some blanks for you, going off script, because only in a place of such egocentric narcissism can we have freedom of choice. Because if you can't tell God no, then saying yes isn't meaningful. It isn't precious. So that means that it's not just that God wants the most arrogant palace to become his abode, open to receive him. He wants that the arrogant place itself should build this abode for him. Thus, the entire process of the egocentric being able to work itself over in the ultimate arousal from below, in which we smash our ego of self. We refine the self, and we elevate the self into an absolute transparency and unity for God, cannot take place before we're allowed to be arrogant. If we're not allowed to be arrogant, then it's not our work. So God does not want a hostile takeover of the supernal white upon the arrogance of the physical self. In the presence of the supernal white, it's impossible for us to be arrogant. By definition, the mere presence of the supernal white already has me being humble. The candle in the face of the sun, it's not doing its job. Thus, ultimately, what's happening here is the supernal white has to leave, because mission is only that Yaakov should go on his way. Yaakov cannot go on his way, i.e., arrogance, without the supernal white stepping off the stage. Thus, the supernal white must leave the stage for us to be able to freely choose to fulfill God's ultimate desire. And God's ultimate desire is that the ego of self in itself should smash itself, open itself up, connect with God. Thus, Yaakov cannot go on his way before Lavan goes back home. That's why he has to leave. Now, I want to share with you one more clarity of this. The ego of self is incapable of stepping out of self. Right? The ego of self is incapable of stepping out of self. Because the ego of self will only define itself, I'd be even a better self if I wasn't so arrogant. So tell me, is that humility? Let me ask you something. The person who's willing to be humble before God to the best of his capacity and understanding of God, is that humility? It's almost like going on a diet. There's a lower desire to eat chocolate cake. There's a higher desire to look good and be healthy. So you're actually exchanging the lower ego desire for the higher ego desire. So too with humility. I can be an arrogant person and have no friends, but I'll be arrogant and everyone will know, don't mess with him. Or I could be a higher ego self and learn to get along with people. That's not humility. That's not smashing of ego. That's a redefining of ego. Thus, ultimately, self is impossible to step out of self. So we're stuck before we start. That's why we need the supernal kiss. Unless I get a kiss from the outside of self, I can never get beyond the tip of the nose of self. But on the other hand, if all I have is the kiss, the supernal kiss from above, and that's all that's taking me out of self, once again, God's desire is not fulfilled. So I can't do it without a good morning kiss from God, but it won't happen the way God wants it to happen if after the good morning kiss, God doesn't back up. Thus, we have to have the entire verse. The supernal white has to kiss all the sons and daughters, the entire process of ego self, evolution, concealment, contraction, arrogance, identity, and then has to back up so that we can do with the kiss. We can do with the kiss by internalizing it, smashing ego, refining self, elevating into transparency and oneness with God. Okay? Now that we understand that, we understand why he kisses and why he leaves, I want to take you to the next level. The next level is, if you're going to have a unity between above and below, you can't have one negate the other. If all of above leaves above and comes to below, or if all of above below packs its bags and leaves and goes to above, you don't have a unity between above and below, because you don't have above and below no more. All you have is one. So the definition of absolute unity between above and below demands that the human should do two types of services. A, bring down the above to below, draw down spirituality. B, elevate the physical. Thus, the work of the Jew is always in two. One is to draw down the spirituality from above into the below. The other one is to elevate the below into the above. Okay? Now, what I want to share with you is that why do I need the service of bringing the above to below if already we have the supernal kiss, which is the above coming to below? So I want to share with you that the human service creates an unprecedented experience in the spiritual service, meaning bringing down the spirituality from above to below. Let's start with that, okay? The human effect on spirituality. Now, even the supernal white, as it descends to kiss the below on its own, is but the supernal white. What does that mean? So I want to just share with you something. I should have said this before, so I'm sorry. Even though we said it's from above to below, nothing can happen in our world if we don't align ourselves with it. You know, sometimes when there's a kiss, one's leaning to kiss and the other turns away. That's not a kiss. So even though Hashem is coming from above to give the kiss, if we turn away, we didn't get the kiss. We're talking about Beneshika's piyu, from lips to lips. That means that somehow, even though it's coming from above unsolicited, at least I have my lips in the right position. How do humans do that? Our experience of aligning ourselves for the supernal kiss is prayer. Now let's talk about prayer. The supernal kiss is what? From the supernal white. What is the supernal white? The infinite light. Right? Let's talk about this. What is the power of prayer? The deepest words in prayer is what? Yehi ratzon. May it be your will. When do we say that? Chaim Yankel is sick. We say Yehi ratzon, he should have a refuah shalema. Now let's be real. Why is Chaim Yankel sick? Why is he sick? Why is Leah Bracha poor? Obviously because God willed it so. Everything that happens here is the will of God. So the will of God is that Chaim Yankel should be sick. And Leah Bracha should be poor. And we're davening for them. What are we davening? It's God's will. Get out of the way. No. Yehi ratzon. God, I know what your will is. I don't need to be a genius. I see Chaim Yankel in bed coughing up. So I know your will is he should be sick. But I'm going to daven that you should change your will. That means that the power of prayer is what? The supernal white is the revelation of the will of God. The power of prayer is that I'm going to talk to the master of the will. Because I want to change the will of God. The power of prayer is that I'm going to talk to the essence source of the light. Because the light is already defined. It is the way it is. Everything is cause and effect. But I want to override cause and effect. That's what prayer is all about. I know maybe I deserve to be sick, but I'm praying to you, God. So cause and effect, infinite light, supernal white, has me sick. I'm going to pray to the source of light to change the light. I'm going to pray to the master of the will to change the will. That means that the supernal kiss before the human davens is all about the revelation of the highest level of light. The highest level of will. What does prayer do? Prayer creates a whole new experience in the spirituality. It's not about the will, it's not about the infinite light, it's about the master of the will, the essence source of the light. So you see now how when the human gets involved and affects the spirituality, it brings spirituality to unprecedented heights. We're not here just to fix this world. Think about it. We're here to bring in an unprecedented experience in those worlds. Those worlds, sons and daughters, all begins by the infinite light. We're here to bring in the source, the essence source, into the light. Everything in creation from the highest point is about the will of God. We know the words, so it has arisen in His will. That's all that creation has, is the will of God. Comes along the Jew and davens, he brings the master of the will into the spirituality. So even in our spiritual service, we're doing what angels and spiritual realms and the infinite light and the 10 emanations can't do on its own. But that's the spiritual. That's bringing above below. Without us, from above to below would only be the infinite light. Thanks to us, from above to below is the essence. But that's not the real power of the Jew. The real power of the Jew is in his physical service. The real power that the Jew has is how he or she elevates, refines the physical, not in the unprecedented experience of drawing the spiritual. Why so? So here goes a very simple question. Know the facts. The facts is that no matter how many times you're going to contract, conceal, redefine, lower and lower spiritual light, you will never have a point in the spiritual evolution where light becomes darkness and where spiritual becomes physical. It's just impossible. I can weaken light, but I can't turn light into darkness. I can't turn spiritual into physical. Do you remember what I said to you before? I said to you before that the whole purpose of this entire evolution is for what? Not to create physical. It's to create a minuscule spirituality that can become a source of sustenance and life to the physical without shattering it. So the whole process of the spiritual evolution is not to create the physical. It can't. It's to create a spirituality that can relate to that physical without destroying it into smithereens. Thus the question is begged to be asked. So where does the physical come from? If everything you learn in Kabbalah is all about the spiritual, to the point where it's the spiritual of the physical, the spiritual of the physical. The soul comes from the infinite light. But where does the body come from? Where does the physical come from? So here's a very important Hasidic rule. The Yesh HaNivra is directly from the Yesh HaAmiti. Let me translate that. Yesh means something, ego. Yesh ma'ayin, something from nothing. Yesh is ego. The Yesh HaNivra, the something egocentric creation, physical, is only connected to the Yesh HaAmiti, the ultimate, absolute, only true something. Light cannot create darkness, spiritual cannot create physical. Thus the physical cannot be the outcome of any contractions. So if you're thinking that the whole reason there was a tzimtzum and a contraction and a this and a that and a that and a that is to create this physical, impossible. The only thing all the contractions can do is to create a godly spark which can sustain this can. But it cannot create a physical can. The only power to create that arrogant something of ultimate physical darkness is the absolute only true something, which is God Himself, not His light, not His name, not anything but God Himself. The ultimate and only true something that exists. Thus, let's talk about this. All my spiritual work is what? to draw down the infinite light. Higher and higher levels of infinite light. Spirituality. What is the power of my physical service? What is my power of physically working on smashing the ego of self, refining the self, elevating the self into absolute transparency? Do you know what that's really all about? That's not about drawing spirituality into this world. That's about revealing within the physical itself the ultimate truism, the truth of all truth, that God is everything and everything is God. So our job is not to bring spirituality into the physical can, but ultimately our job is to reveal that the only true embodiment of the ultimate true something is the physical arrogant something. I didn't put this in my notes, but it's in the mimer. I'm just going to say it briefly. We're running over time. That's why it says when Mashiach comes, the body is not going to live from the soul. The soul is going to live from the body. Today, when the soul leaves the body dies. Because the body needs the soul. When Mashiach comes, the soul is going to live from the body. Do you know why? Because today, pre-Mashiach, we need to live from the infinite light. When Mashiach comes, the infinite light is going to get to live from the essence. Where is the essence? Only in the physical. Thus the soul is going to come to get life from the body. Now we understand that everything that happens, Lavan comes all the way down here to kiss the son and the daughters, is all for what? So that Jacob goes on his way. Which way? Not the way, ultimately speaking, not the way of drawing spirituality into this world. The ultimate purpose of everything is so that Jacob can reveal that the physical is where God is everything and everything is God. And when I say God is everything and everything is God, I don't mean the infinite light of God, I mean God. That only happens in the physical service. The spiritual service is drawing down spirituality, which by definition is the infinite light, not the essence source. Okay, let's get to the closing. In closing, let's go back to the very first thing we spoke about, the modern issue. What was the modern issue about? Letting our feelings simmer down in order that we can begin living. I shared with you briefly the corruption of the mind rules over the heart. That instead of having the heart subservient to just making higher intellect a human experience of feelings, it reversed itself. The heart, i.e. the physical body, has its memory of the type of feelings that we were flocking in, and thus now it's making demands of the mind to think what it wants it to think so that it can keep on producing the peptides. Right? Okay. What we just learned? We learned, however, the exact opposite. We learned that while the body is driving the mind to have very destructive, intense feelings, we just realized something. That the ultimate intensity of spirituality, i.e. feelings, can only take place when what? When the infinite source of feelings steps away. So the ultimate intensity of feelings would be what more than the spiritual supernal kiss? That would be the ultimate intensity of feelings. But we just explained that the reality and the absolute fulfillment of feelings only takes place when the supernal white and its supernal kiss goes back home. Because that's when it allows the ultimate darkness of I, of self, to be. And what do we explain? That the ultimate darkness of egocentric self is the portal. It is the experience of the absolute, only ultimate true something. Right? Thus, as scary as it may seem, and as lonely as it may feel, we must allow for our fiery, warm feelings to simmer down, so that we can truly live in the absolute fulfillment of ourselves, our relationships, and of our world. The ultimate fulfillment of self is only when we allow Lavan to go back home. The Supernal Kiss was received, and now you need to step out. Supernal one, you need to step out. I need to reveal the entire egocentric, rebellious self. I need to be able to egocentrically toy with that kiss you gave me. I need to be able to have it simmer down so I can play with it, digest it, so that I can ultimately refine the rebellious, egocentric self, so we can have the truest fulfillment of a relationship. I'm just going to sum it up this way, not in my notes, going off script because my scripts are done. I want to share with you something. Ultimately, absolute truth happens in silence. If you're feeling excited, it's not the core essence of self. The core essence of self doesn't know excitement. The essence of being isn't exciting. It just is. Anything that's exciting means it hasn't yet penetrated the absolute essence of self. The absolute essence of self is experienced in the solitude and quietude more than it is in the dancing and the chaotic. Thus, the ultimate experience of intense feelings for a human being is to be able to simply be. That's where the true expression of self is. And thus in life, you'll always find, until the feelings can't simmer down to make cool, cold, calm, decisions, the self isn't kicking in. Thank you.